Hi, Mama.
Hi, Julie.
Okay, so what year were you born?
I was born in 1934
In where?
in Fargo, North Dakota, at home. And I don't know exactly the address, but it was in Fargo.
Did the doctor come just to the house, or was it just all natural?
Probably all natural in the year 1934.
I had no clue.
Uh-huh.
And at that time you had two older sisters, Donna and
Donna, Mary, Molly.
Donna, Mary, and Molly, three older sisters.
Three older sisters, right.
Were they all born at home?
No, Donna was born in we think in a hospital. Mary, and I have that all on record. And I think Molly and myself, Molly and me were born at home. And I think,
Interesting.
and we're questioning right now, but I do have it on record.
And Linda and Jan.
Linda and Jan were born in a hospital. Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. And
I don't think there were funds to go to a hospital, to tell the truth.
were all of them born in the same city?
No.
So,
Donna was born in Minneapolis,
Uh-huh.
Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
And Mary, I think, was Fargo. And Molly was, I'm guessing now because I don't have
That's
the
okay.
paperwork.
That's okay.
Fargo. And then I was Fargo.
Uh-huh.
And Jan was Fargo in a hospital, I guess, and I think
Oh.
Linda too. So,
And
But
so your mom never worked. Your mom was just a stay-at-home,
always
a stay-at-home mom. And-
Yeah, I'm sure she might have worked before Donna was born, but I think Donna was born the next year. So
And your mom was born where?
in Tour, Sweden.
Sweden. And she had how many brothers and sisters?
She had one brother and Elma.
Roy.
Let's see, Roy is the brother.
Uh-huh.
And then she had, I think with four sisters.
Amy.
There's
And-
Amy, Elizabeth, which we call Betty,
Right.
and Ruth.
Oh, that's right, Ruth. Okay.
Ruth,
and,
yeah.
and Elma and Roy. Okay.
Yeah, right.
And then your dad was probably born in Ireland.
In Ireland, Cork County,
Cork
that
County.
we know of.
And he came here approximately
18,
18.
We think 18, about 1897 approximately. We understood he was approximately 17 years old, and he was born in 1880.
Gotcha. And he came here, and then his port papers show, I think it was New York where he landed, I think, I don't remember. I'll have to look at the paperwork. But I know it said that his landing in the United States, his paperwork. And then, so we don't know if he has any brothers or sisters.
Not
No,
yet.
yeah,
No,
right,
not yet.
right, right. Okay, and then, so him and your mom married. Your mom was how old when she got married?
27.
27. And he was 47.
Right.
And they got married. Okay, and then you guys ended up moving to Far.
Well, yeah, when they got married, they lived in Minneapolis. That's where Mom was apparently working.
Gotcha.
And then, anyway, that's where she and Dad got married. Now, we always understood Mom and Dad celebrated their anniversary July 2nd. I have a marriage certificate that says they were born July 3rd.
Or married July 3rd.
July 3rd of instead of the 2nd.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is. So whether, they casually filled it out the next day, who knows?
Right.
But it is a legal document.
Too drunk to remember to fill it out.
But I mean, they didn't do it, but
Right.
it had to be, because they were married in a church.
So how did you end up ending up in Seattle? Your dad's work?
It was after the war, there was no work. The creamery that Dad worked for as a mechanic, he might have driven trucks too, but I think he was basically, he's always been a mechanic. And the war was such that they no more jobs.
Right.
And so at the time, my Aunt Ruth was married to Uncle Bus and Butler Hanson, and they lived down Roosevelt Way. And he communicated with my dad and
Right.
said, "Well, come to Seattle. There'll be, there's lots of work in Seattle." So anyway, Dad packed up and came to Seattle alone. I don't know whether he came on the train or a bus. I
Right.
don't know. He didn't drive because he didn't have his own vehicle. He always had work vehicles.
And your mom never drove.
And my mom never drove.
Wow.
So Dad came here, and then he stayed in the basement of my Aunt Ruth's house. And he was there, I think, September through December. In the meantime, he bought the little house on East Madison, 3221 East Madison. And
you guys all grew up there.
we all grew
You
up
all grew
there.
up there. And you went to Garfield High School,
I
didn't you?
started at McGilvra. I started in the third grade, third B, because it had already had a first session in Fargo,
Gotcha.
the third grade.
So you went to Garfield High School and you graduated, and then you went to work for your boss that you love so much. Who was that?
Wendell Boldensteel from the Hartford.
And is that where you learned shorthand?
Yeah, well, I took shorthand in college. But when I graduated in 1952, I had to get a job, so I started with the Hartford Insurance Company, and I worked in the claim division there, and I really liked it. I worked under Mrs. Cram and had really nice people that I worked around. And I worked there in the full year. And I told them I wanted to go to college, but I needed a job.
Yeah.
So they still hired me. And then the next year, I had saved enough money so I could enter the University of Washington.
Oh.
And so I told them I'd have to quit, and they said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to look for a part-time job. I'll go to school in the morning at the university, and then I'll go to." They said, "Well, can't you come here?" And I said, "Well, I'd love to do that, but I didn't think you wanted somebody
Right.
full time." And they said, "No, we want you."
Oh.
So anyway, then I worked there part-time for 2 years while I was in college. I worked full-time during the summers there. And then things were rough at home, and we bought a house when we got married.
Right.
We got married June 1st.
Well, now wait. So two more questions.
Okay.
Backtracking a lot. Did you have any pets when you were growing up? Dogs or cats?
Oh, when in Seattle, we had, in Fargo, we had Muggsy, a wonderful dog. He was he was a mutt, I'm sure, but he had German Shepherd in him. And he was kind and wonderful.
He was
female.
a bigger dog?
A
then?
big
Bigger
dog, yeah,
Big
he
dog?
was nice, and we liked him. And then I don't know what happened to him. I can't remember.
You never had any cats?
We had cats in Seattle.
Oh.
Yeah, we had cats in Seattle, and we'd have a cat, and then of course if they had babies, then we had to do what I could to get rid of them. You have homes for the rest of them.
Right.
So we always had a kitty cat at
Cats
home.
or something. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you went to college, and then you were working part-time and then going to college. And then how did you meet Dad?
I met Dad.
I know, it's a blind date.
I was at the university, and one of the sorority sisters was named Marcy Snow, and she was dating a fellow by the name of Jim Bender. And anyway, they were going to have the Sigma Nu dinner dance, and so she said, Jim has a friend and he needs a date.
Right.
And I, so what, so anyway, so I didn't even get a chance to really meet him. It was like, okay, it's a blind date, be dressed up. It's a dressy dress. And So we did.
Was it love at first sight or was it not love
No,
at first sight?
heavens no.
No.
It was just a date. I mean, he was
Yeah.
a nice guy.
Right.
Because, he wanted, we talked skiing.
Right.
And he wanted me to go skiing with
Right.
him. And of course I said, well, I know how to ski. I went once to the mountain, rented skis while I was in 8th grade. Our teacher took a group of us to Mount Rainier, and we had
So
a
it wasn't
cabin.
really a lie. You had skied.
I had skied, and I had tried to snowplow. So anyway, although that was not a good day.
But then you ended up. So Dad would race slalom or downhill. What?
He didn't like downhill.
Downhill.
Giant slalom was
Slalom.
his favorite.
Yeah.
And slalom
And he did track when he was in high school,
in
didn't
high
he?
school. Yes.
Oh, interesting. Huh. So then you ended up getting married you got engaged in 1955.
Right.
And then when you got married, your honeymoon was moving into the house in Lake Forest Park.
Right.
And Dad's dad, Pop, and his mom, Laura, lived in the house right across the street.
Right.
And did they have dogs?
They had always had a dog. They had a dog.
Why do
They
I
had
remember? Do I remember a
a
dog down
brown dog. What was his name?
I don't remember.
the name. I don't remember names either.
there? I don't remember him.
I'll have to
Yeah.
ask Sue.
Yeah, I don't remember their dog, but I never met her, and she
Yeah.
died in 1961. 61.
Yeah, my dad died in April 19th of 61, and Laura died July 24th of 61.
And your dad died of what?
Heart.
Heart
It was
attack?
Heart. It
Heart
was
attack.
Heart attack.
And your
yeah.
mom, Edith,
also
a heart attack.
heart attack, right.
And then so Pop remarried and married Rachel
In October of that same
of the
year.
same year. It just doesn't seem right. Okay, so he married Rachel the same year, and she worked for him at some point in time, I guess.
Earlier, yes, much earlier, when George worked in an office. Yeah, I think it was when Albert Rossellini, who was a mayor, I think, of something, attorney's office, anyway. And George had some kind of a menial job there. And at this time, I think that's where he met Rachel.
Gotcha.
She was clerical of
So
some sort.
when did Pop start doing electrical that Dad started working for him? When they were really, really young? Or because Dad...
As soon as Dad was out of high school, he went to work for Safeway.
Oh,
He said, we're never going to work for his dad.
right.
You know that.
I think we all said that at some point in time. Okay.
And so he worked for Safeway, and then I guess he wasn't going anywhere other than he had a job. Then he started working part-time for George, and so George said, well, come work for me, and I can pay you $3 an hour,
Right.
but you don't have any benefits, you don't have nothing, so.
So Dad, Laura died that was 6 months, right? After you guys were married?
Yes, yeah, we were born in 56.
You were married, and so she was alive for a few years.
Yeah, she was alive for 5 years.
I always thought it was just a real short period of time. I guess I didn't know that. So,
No.
And then Dad ended up doing the Onsum Electric.
Yes.
And
It was George married Rachel, and then, they lived together, in the house, and then he decided Aunt Betty had built a house next door, and so she talked George into buying the lot here that just had nothing but trees on it,
oh, okay.
and build a house.
Yeah.
So anyway, he bought the lot.
So Betty lived here first.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought Pop built this house and then Betty bought that next door. Oh,
No, Betty bought that lot first.
I didn't know that.
And had the house built,
Mm-hmm.
and a panabode, and then George bought this lot,
Mm-hmm.
and then when they got married, and then it was They started about 1968. He said one day, I'm all through working, Tom. You're going to have to get a job by yourself. He says, we're going to build a house up on Whidbey Island.
Wow.
So there he was.
Wow.
And we had,
And you guys were.
I had Dean.
Oh,
Dean was a
jeez.
baby. And
you had a mortgage
and
payment.
we had a mortgage, yeah. And, you know, I at that time, I guess going to work seemed to be out of the question, but it was apparently on my mind.
Right.
What would we do?
What are you gonna do?
know?
Yeah.
And because, you know, there was nobody to be. Rachel was really good with you kids when you were very young, though.
It
you
was
know.
when we got to start to talk back.
Yeah, probably. Then nobody would love you that much, except mom and dad.
That's right. So, but Dad's business, it did really well. I mean, when you think about, not to be name dropping, but it's like we did Paul Allen's house, you know,
Right.
and then the Nordstrom's house, and we did the Perry's, the Cellular One house. You know, and I mean, all those homes in the
Macaw,
Highlands.
right.
Oh, yeah, Macaw. And then we did the Shaw Safari.
Well, we
Those
had
people's houses?
nice contractors.
We
We
did
had
beautiful
reputable contractors.
Yeah.
And, you know, Tom, we started out right after 68 when, you know, I mean, Tom would do tile work. He did anything he could do.
Sure.
You know, to do that, and then he was studying a lot to become an apprentice,
Right.
You know, electrically, and then to become a journeyman.
Right.
And so then, but you know, in between it was just really rough getting jobs. So he did a lot of odd jobs when we were first married, and I was really conservative too. You
Sure.
know?
Sure.
I'd sew for the kids and stuff, but
So Dean was born in 1960 in Seattle.
in Seattle.
In Seattle.
At General Hospital.
And
so-
all his kids were
Maynard
born
Maynard Hospital.
I was born
Maynard.
in Maynard. All of us were.
All
Is
three
Maynard
were.
Hospital still exist?
No, it was
Oh.
taken over by Swedish.
Oh, okay. I know that I was born in Maynard,
Yeah.
but I just didn't know. I didn't know if it was a
The
military
doctor
thing.
was E. Gerald Layton,
Mhm.
Layton, and he's passed away since. But he was
I hope
wonderful,
so.
wonderful obstetrician doctor. So.
Yeah. So let's see what questions that I have. So Dad was in the military, or he was in the
Naval
in the
Air
Navy
Reserve, and he was in the S2F airplanes out of Sandpoint.
And that's a picture of him in front of the airplane that I have of you guys on your trip when you went to see the I call it Grey Goose, but
Yeah.
what is the
Yeah,
Grey Goose is a vodka.
I think
the goose something.
Something goose.
Yeah.
Down in Tillamook.
Yeah,
Right.
and there's a picture of you guys standing in
Yeah,
front of a plane.
right,
that
that
was
aviation.
that was his plane though, like
Yeah,
his type of plane.
S2F, right.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it was a wonderful plane that would fly out of Sandpoint, and the flight pattern was always over our house at Lake Forest Park. And we could always hear the sound of it. He said, "Oh, there's an S2F." Isn't it? You knew it. I mean, I just knew it from.
That's neat. Now there was a plane crash in Lake Forest Park, or well, actually Mount Lake Terrace.
Mount Lake Terrace.
And that was the 60s, early 60s. Was Dean born yet, you think?
I don't believe Dean was born yet.
So-
no. I think I was in the late 50s.
And that was like a Blue Angel type jet that went, and
that
it
crashed.
and well, you tell the story, but you said it was like right over the treetops, wasn't it?
Yeah,
when it went over.
We heard this noise coming over Lake Forest Park, and we like it was like a shadow, and we ran out to the edge of the bank and looked. We could just, and all the next thing we saw was a big pile of smoke.
That piece of property is still empty.
Is that
There's
right?
they've never built on it.
Okay.
It's that intersection in Mount Lake Terrace,
Right.
and there is a power pole. You know the
The wire.
the
big-
wires.
yeah,
It's there off of that, but that corner, that piece of property has
Is that-
they've never put a house
Never?
on it. Isn't that
It
yeah?
is interesting. Yeah.
That would have been scary with the plane going right over.
Oh yeah, it
right
was-
over the
yeah, it's
the
hard
tree.
to believe, and we could Tom could just almost picture exactly where it was. So I remember we got in the car, and then of course we couldn't get anywhere near.
Sure.
It happened so quickly. They shut everything off around it, you know. So
Yeah. I think of that every time I drive down that road.
Do you
That,
really?
yeah. That
I
what that
never
must
see-
what
yeah.
that must have been like, because I know an F-16 went over the top of my house in Mukilteo,
Mm-hmm.
and they flipped over and waved at us during an air show because
Uh-huh.
we were out in our yard, and that was so scary because he was so low.
oh, I can imagine it would be
But I couldn't imagine one out of control
right
flying
right.
like that.
Yeah.
What else do you want to talk about?
Well,
So you worked for Dad your whole life
we
for Ansem
We
Electric.
actually started about 1968 was when George decided not to work any longer, and so yeah, I worked there. When our first employee was Dick Stevens, and I think that was in 1972. And so then we had to start, you know, all the employee
Yeah.
thing at that point.
Yeah, it's
And,
funny because I remember him.
Yeah.
And then so we had two cabins. We had one at Stevens Pass and one at Crystal.
Right.
And-
We didn't actually have ownership in Penguins.
Right.
We were just members. And if you were a member, you were a part of it, but you never owned.
Right.
You had ownership.
Right. But did Dad have those before you guys got married? Or did you get those after?
No, we joined that after we got married.
And then what about Crystal?
Crystal,
Edelweiss.
that was in, and I believe it was 1969. We were able to still do quite a bit of skiing
Right.
in between, and Molly would babysit Dean, and then when Janine came along,
She
as I
did.
said, he decided not to.
Two kids were too much,
much
or
for
Janine
him,
was
too
too much.
Well, I think that probably could have been, but anyway, Jim Sweeney and Jim Liam, you know, they said, well, we're going to form a corporation and build a cabin at Crystal. And Tom said, well, I don't have enough money I can't join it.
Right.
But he said I could wire it, and you know I can give you a bid, and so my ownership would be into wire it.
Oh,
So
I didn't know
did
that.
it. So he wired the cabin at Crystal. We spent a lot of time going back and forth,
I did not know that.
and wired it. And
And then you guys bought a boat, Okie doke. And
yeah, from Crookshank, Ray Crookshank,
that's right.
and
you
I
went in
think it
halves with
was
Uncle
called Fun Day at
When
the
he had it?
time. When he had it, I think.
We needed to change that name.
Yeah, and then we renamed it with Dave Quinnell.
No, right.
And so that was when we called it the Okie Doke.
O for Ansem, Q for Quinnell, and Doke wasn't that the dinghy?
No, Okie Doke with Quinnell was the Q.
Q.
O Q
Q-U, Quinnell, and then Doke.
O-K-E, I
Yeah.
guess.
And then we used to go to Saddlebag and Susha.
We'd drive motor and pull the boat to Anacortes, and then we'd sling the boat in, mechanically sling it into the water
I remember that.
at Saddlebag. And so,
We'd go stay at the Saddlebag, and us kids would take the dinghies
and,
out.
you know, and then we'd go other places too, but most of the time we'd go up there because the crabbing was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to get a little bit of info because
Okay.
stuff that I didn't know and
Uh-huh.
everybody else doesn't know.
All right.
Okay, goodbye. Say goodbye, Mom.
Goodbye, Julie.